me do the second time what I did not do correctly the first time. Father Bennett is a Franciscan father. Bennett Funk is a Franciscan, and he is a cousin of Seal Carson, and he's on sabbatical. God bless you, Father, that you can be on sabbatical. And welcome to St. Margaret Mary's. We're glad to have you this week. Most welcome. Let's welcome you. Now, the gospel is supposed to be good news. Did you hear that gospel? Does that sound good to you? You want to take a couple Tylenol and then we'll get into this? This is really painful. I did not come for peace. I came for division. Why don't we read that on Christmas? Peace on earth to everyone of goodwill. Now it's just the opposite. That's why be careful when you play Bible bingo and start quoting the Bible to other people. Because for every quote you can find to make your point, somebody will find one that contradicts it to say just the opposite. That's why we have to look at the whole of the scriptures and not just the part, or not be selective in what we choose to hear or not hear. What Jesus is really talking about here is the division that comes when we commit ourselves to Christ and have to follow a path that is not popular and is not in the culture. It's not, everybody's not doing it. And if you go against the grain of the crowd, the group, you know the price you're going to pay. Where did it get him? Well, as we heard in that second reading, it's going to happen to us too. To stand up for what you believe in and to follow the truth brings its own sacrifice. And what I think we could go on and on about this tonight, but we have to baptize this child who's just been perfect so far. We don't want to ruin that. But for our purposes tonight, we have to think about the challenges that come to us because we believe. And there are certain kinds of peace that we cannot have if we think we're going to get a shortcut to peace. I just put 3 down. The peace we're not going to be able to have, we'll never have. First of all, the peace, I'm comfortable, but you're suffering. I don't want to get involved. I'll mind my own business. Other people are having a hard time, but I'm not going to rock the boat. Mind your own business, and sometimes we need to do that. But there is a peace I don't want to see, what I don't want to see going on around me. Well, God, go take care of that. Well, what if God's saying, I'm sending you? No. There is no peace that comes when we know others are hurting and we're fine. There should be something inside of us that kind of agitates us not to be too comfortable and too complacent about that. The Holy Father's been on this, like at World Youth Day in Rio, and a lot of his preaching. He's really telling the people in the church, get out of that church and go to the fringes. And stop praying to God and acting like you're so holy when your brothers and sisters around you are suffering. We're implicated in the sufferings of the world. We got to bring our faith to bear on making things better in the world around us. There is no peace if we don't. It's a cheap kind of peace. The second one. How many times have you, we said, let's just keep the peace. Don't rock the boat. Don't make waves. Well, because you know if you do, what's going to happen. It's that kind of, what kind of peace is there if you're afraid? I'm afraid that's not peace. That's temporary reprieve, waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's not gospel peace. And by the way, peace, the definition of peace, is about right relationships. When our relationships that bind us together are right, we are better, we are right. When they aren't, we aren't. And that connects to the third one. Peace, be silent. I'll be silent, but I know you're being abused. Oh, I don't want to say anything. And that abuse can be any kind of abuse. Part of the suffering that we have in life. This is a tricky example, but I'm going to risk it with you. Over the years, I've talked with many, many couples about failed marriages. And the point being, if you choose to be married again in the church, and we're married in the church originally, should we look at an annulment? Well, that's a very complex issue, and you've heard my story to you, but if you want to know what an annulment is, do not ask a Catholic, because you make it up. We don't get it. It's a pastoral outreach that people do not understand, and they make it up and make it worse than what it is. But that's not my point here. My point is, in looking at should there be how long were you married the first time? Many years. But you suffered. It was a difficult thing from the get-go. Why did you remain in the relationship? Well, there are different answers. If you're from the old school, you made your bed, now sleep in it. A couple of those are here. I thought I could make it work. Thought it would be better. Or after a point, I was afraid of the consequences. Or did it for the children. There are many different responses here. Where is the peace when you're eating your liver trying to cope with a failed relationship? And there's so much suffering about in this. And this is very painful because it's all around us and it's in all of our families. But it is real. And I think it's very important to say today, whatever school we're in now, not just marriage relationships, but relationships are not licenses for abuse. This could be friendship, because you hear these terrible stories on the news of teenagers and kids in relationships that are afraid they break up, one gets homicidal, or then we go on the internet and we get ballistic, and the threats. What a way to have to live because you chose not to be in a relationship. What's that all about? If in fact the truth is this is not right, I can't stay in it, then you got to listen to your conscience. And God gives us the grace to listen to the truth and to follow the truth in love in the best way that we can. This is not to be selfish. There comes a time when you cannot live a lie. And if that truly is there, you got to deal with that. And if that's an issue for anybody here, I'm always happy to talk to you about that. We stay in relationships for the wrong reasons. Sometimes we opt out for the wrong reasons, and that's a topic for another day. That is true too. It's like, as soon as things are bad, I'm out of here. That's the other extreme. But this one is about, be very careful. Relationships were made for mutuality. How often you say, well, we got a problem, you go get counseling, I don't need it. Excuse me? If one has a problem, two have a problem. It's an excuse not to deal. What kind of peace? And sometimes the hardest thing to do. And I admire people who have at great cost and great risk stood up and said, I cannot do this any longer. And that takes great courage. And we need to be able to see that and acknowledge that and not dismiss it. And in other places, I don't want to just pick on failed marriages. This is relationships. This is our young adults and our teens. Peer pressure. We are cruel with our peers. I don't like you. You don't do what the group tells you. We will form a circle around you and we'll torture you. This is what young people learn in the culture. If any young people here, we'll draw the ages go forever. If you're in a position like that and stay in that circle, and I'm going to torture you, that's a mortal sin. That is serious stuff. That's heavy duty. Our role is not to torture each other who we decide we don't like tonight. That's not, and then the piece is, now I kept my friends because we put out somebody we all don't like. Now we're really in with each other. No, you aren't. That's not peace. That's temporary something that will not last tomorrow when you're the next victim. We got to wake up to some of this stuff because there's a lot of cruelty that goes around and people afraid to say anything or to do anything for fear of the consequences. That's what Jesus is talking about. The truth will set you free, but it may shake you up along the way. And we need the Spirit's gift of courage to say and do the right thing when it is time to do it, to stand up and be counted, and not to wimp out and fall into the woodwork. Not me, not us. That's death. And that's what we are not made, and that is not the peace that we're really looking for in this life. These are wake-up calls about a lot of things in life. Take this gospel and meditate on it in terms of where is the Word of God speaking to your heart where you have to stand up for the truth and not live a lie or not support the lies of others because you need to keep the peace. At what cost? We were not made for this kind of life now and certainly in the life to come.